Okay, so today you're going to learn about Jamestown, the very first successful English colony in the New World, also known as America. By the end of this video, you should be able to answer two questions. Number one, what challenges did the settlers face in Jamestown? Number two, how did they finally thrive? It all starts when the Virginia Stock Company receives a commission from King James I to settle Virginia. So what does that mean? Well, the Virginia Stock Company is a privately owned company with investors. They paid for the three ships to cross the Atlantic. They paid all expenses. But they had to get permission from King James I of England because he was a king and he had absolute power. He had to give them what was called a commission to go over, settle the land, and control that area. And in exchange, the king and England would get a cut of any profits that happened. So it was a total win-win for King James. The trip across the Atlantic was horrific. It lasted about 5 months. The ship leaked. The waves, these ships are really small, okay? If you've gone on a cruise, it's not like that. These are small boats crossing an Atlantic with huge waves. The food, after a week or so, gets rotten. In fact, many ships, the people would eat at night in darkness, so they would not have to look at the food they were eating because there would be rodents on it, it would be moldy, it was disgusting. But it was all you could eat and you had to survive. There were rats, the storms made the ships just toss and turn and got many people very seasick for days and weeks on end. Not a fun time. But finally, they saw land and they were in the New World, America. This is where they're going to settle and create their colony. So the first thing they have to do is find a good spot to make Jamestown. And they found an area that was a peninsula, which means a piece of land surrounded by water on all three sides. It had a good harbor for ships to come in and dock so that trade could happen. There were no natives living in that spot, and the land was very fertile. So they found a really nice spot. They settled there and said, okay, this is Jamestown. This is our colony. This is where we're going to settle. Unfortunately, very close by, lived 14,000 Algonquin-speaking Indians who were ruled by Chief Powhatan. Now, the settlers will have good and not so good relationships with the Native Americans as times pass. Initially, the natives taught the settlers a few tricks on how to survive, helped them, but within a short period of time, within a couple of years, there will be fighting and killing and beheading. So first thing you got to do is build some homes, right? So they built a fort in Jamestown. This was the first settlement. You've got forts to protect the colony, a few houses for people to live in, and a church. Always a church. Religion was very important during this time. In fact, many people who came to America came for religious freedom. After a short time, the captain of the ship, as well as John Smith, had to go back to England to get more supplies, and they were going to return. Well, the settlers that were left behind faced a terrible winter. And this time period between 1609 and 10, that winter became known as the starving time. 80% of the colonists perished during this time. The few remaining survivors were giving up on the colony and they were leaving. John Rolfe introduced tobacco farming. So tobacco farming is what you call a cash crop. That's when you grow something to sell it and make money, as opposed to growing tomatoes or potatoes that you can actually eat as well as sell. And tobacco is what will make Virginia a wealthy colony. Unfortunately, you need a lot of very cheap labor in order to plant and harvest the crops. And so the very first African slaves are imported to Virginia at this time. Virginia is the first representative government in America. Several men in the colony would get together. They were representatives of all the people, and they would discuss and vote on new rules, new laws, new taxes for the colony. So this is foreshadowing what will become the United States of America, which is a representative democracy where we choose people to go and make the laws for us. Virginia did this all the way back in the 1600s. And slowly, more and more people came from England for to improve their life and for the opportunities that the New World could give to them. And eventually, 12 more colonies would be settled, and we'd have a total of 13 English colonies here on the East Coast in America that would be thriving places to live and will turn into, after the American Revolution, the United States of America. Okay, so the original two questions. What challenges did the settlers face in Jamestown, and how did they finally thrive? Can you answer at least a couple of reasons for each? Okay, so did you say for challenges was the terrible, horrible trip across the Atlantic, that it was a miracle of 105 men and boys who started out, only one died. The potentially hostile Native American tribes that were living nearby, famine, which means starvation and no food, the harsh winters, and being very unskilled at survival in this brand new world that was America. These were some of the challenges faced and overcome, and they did thrive thanks to the arrival of new settlers and supplies, as well as the beginning of cash crops, specifically tobacco. Later, cotton will be added, and the use of slave labor to make these profitable endeavors. Okay, so that's how what will become the Virginia colony thrives. All right, you listened to this entire video and you did good work and therefore deserve a riddle. Why aren't koalas actual bears? Did you know that? Koalas are not bears. Why not? Hmm. Because they don't meet the qualifications. Get it? Well, just FYI, koalas are marsupials. They have pouches that they hold their young in, and that's why they are not bears and they're considered marsupials, like kangaroos. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come back and watch more of these videos.